Hi everyone, thank you for coming along today to watch my video. I'm going carrying on with my Memory Dex cards and with my talking in real time, well realish. Sometimes I might have to pause for a bit of drying or allowing something to be cut out. I thought today I would go with a bit of a vintage / steampunk theme, well probably more vintage actually, but what I would like to do is to use some different surfaces to do some stamping onto, to go onto my Memory Dex card. So I've got out some of my heat resistant acetate, which I love stamping images onto. I just love the idea of being able to see through, because sometimes when you create a really lovely background, you want to put something on the top, you want a focal point, or you want some more images, but you want to still see what you've done behind. So I think that using something like acetate really helps with that. And the other thing I wanted to use was this Dina Wakley collage paper. I have used normal tissue paper in the past to do this sort of technique, but the Dina Wakley collage paper is really sturdy and really stands up to quite a lot of abuse, not for a better word. So I'm going to use both of those later, but I'm going to start by creating my background on my Memory Dex card. Now this is, a lot of these I cut such a long time ago that I can't remember. It feels like it is either like a very smooth watercolour card or perhaps a mixed media type card. And I'm going to be using, I've got my ink well out ready, I don't need that quite yet. I thought I would use some of the Distress oxide ink pads, and I'm going to do a smooshy technique. So I'll get my blending mat, this is my Be Crafty blending mat, and I'm going to just smoosh out some of the colours. Now normally I do them sort of a layer at a time and dry them, but I thought I might have a go at just putting some colours together. So I'll put a bit of antique linen, a bit of vintage photo. Those are two of my favourite for doing any sort of vintage style projects, and a little bit of walnut stain to start with, giving those a squish with my water, and then I'm just going to literally smooch, press. I'm sort of trying not to swirl to, although they have sort of muddied a bit. This is why I generally try to do it in layers, because you get more of a you get more definition between the colours. When you do it this way, you do tend to get more of a mixture, but I actually do rather like that. And sometimes I quite like to have the little bits of white, so I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to give that a quick wipe with the cloth, which I had moved, just to clean it off. And I'm going to move this blending mat out of the way because it will warp if I try and heat on top. So I'm going to give that a quick dry. I do tend to use the highest setting on my heat tool just because I am an impatient crafter. I've got a hair there, so I've made a nice little smudge. And as this dries, you see it becomes more sort of chalky looking, much lighter colour, and that's because of the pigmenting inside the distressed oxides that give it that sort of oxidised look. Now, if you wanted to at this stage, you could then go back and do another layer with some of your brown skin, but I'm actually going to bring in a little bit of the salvaged patina, which I think works really well with these sort of rusty colours or vintage colours, because it gives that sort of, you know, when copper goes that green, it gives that kind of a look. So I don't want tons, so I'm going to just put a little bit out, and this is the latest Tim Holtz colour, which I think has got to be one of my favourites, I think, that he's brought out. And I'm going to maybe try and go more for around the edges. Now they are water reactive, and if you're adding more water back into that background, you may find you get a little bit of reactivation of the underneath ink, but because it's brown and blue, it's making a sort of greeny browny colour anyway, so which I think goes with the theme, so I'm not too worried. So I haven't put loads of that in, I just wanted a little bit just to add a bit of a contrast. So let's give that a quick dry as well. Bring that up to the camera just so you can have a little look at how that, I really love how that salvage patina just creates that little bit of contrast with the browns and adds that extra rustiness. Now this is where I'm going to bring in my stencil, but I didn't want to just stencil, I say just, it's not just, I love stenciling with my inks, but I didn't want to stencil with my inks today. I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I've got some Dina Wakley ultra thick gel medium, and I've got some, this is my aged gold embossing enamel. This is Stampendous. I bought a lot of these years ago, and I tipped them. I got some takeaway trays, or had some takeaway trays, and I put each of my colours into them and labelled them up with spoons so that I could use them to really throw them onto things. Don't know, I'm getting bit lower to that one, but you do need to sort of mix them up because the Stampendous embossing enamel, ooh, got a hole in it, possibly, ooh, or I hadn't got the lid on properly. The embossing enamels have got all different sizes of grains of embossing powder in them, which is what gives you the really cool effect and the really aged effect. So then they're not really for doing anything detailed, so I'm not expecting necessarily to get a really detailed impression. I just want some pattern in the background. So actually what I am going to do first, because this is Distress Oxide, I've only just put it on, I'm only just giving it a bit of a waft, so I am going to put some anti-static on here so that hopefully the embossing powder will only stick to where I put my gel medium. And you can do the same thing with an embossing dabber, but I wanted a little bit more texture going on with this, so you just get your, let's get that right on to the edge. I don't think I want the whole of that, so I'm just going to go there, and let's have a little bit up here as well. You notice I never tend to stick my stencils down, which for me isn't an issue because I am usually using my stencils in quite a, not abstract, but I can't think of the word. I'm not looking for a perfect impression. I'm usually just going for texture. I'm going for pattern in my background, so I don't worry too much that they're not going to be perfectly stenciled out. I'm going to put that to the side over there. Should have had a pot of water, but I didn't. And I'm going to pop that on there. Take my lid off my takeaway tray. I don't necessarily need the spoon. I'm going to give it a mix because I can see there are smaller grains, in particular of the black, which are not mixed in, and I want them to all be mixed together so that I get a variation in the grains. I'm going to tip it all off onto there and then all onto there, and like I said, look, you're not going to get a fine detailed emboss with this. This is for your effects, this is for your texture. I just realised there's a great big crack, great big crack in the lid. No wonder it was coming out. And I'm going to give that a quick blast there. And as this is turning the embossing powder, it's also then heating, slightly bubbling, the texture paste underneath, but that is all adding to the effect of the texture, which is what I want. I want it to have that aged, vintage sort of look to it. Turn around, make sure you don't mind your fingers. You can see it's shimmering and like it's bubbling. Look at that one, a bit dry there. And this is a really nice, quick and easy way of getting some texture into your background. Ooh, come back. Sometimes if you lift your work up, it helps the heat to get all the way through, so it's not just going into your table as well. So it will probably flatten itself down a little bit in a moment, but if you can see, you've got that raised 3D look to that one. And I am going to just give this a little clean because I don't want all that powder. I think I've said this before, I don't know if I've said it on here or if I've said it on a live, that these silicone mats are fabulous, but the embossing powder clings to them really badly, so you do then find embossing powder for a lot of time. Now what I also think that I need to do is I do want to darken up the edge a little bit on there, so I'm going to find, what have I got, let's go with a bit of, I would normally go with the brown, but I'm thinking I might go peacock feathers just for a change really. So I'm going to clean off my my brush because I'm not quite sure what colour was last on there. And I'm going to, because it's sort of, I feel that the peacock feathers is sort of a bit of a darker version of the salvage patina, and it just might be quite nice just to have a different colour to my normal browns that I would go for an edging, or black is what my ultimate sort of edging colour is, and then that will tie in with the salvage patina that's in there as well. Oh, I really like that. I must use peacock feathers again for the edges of things, because it's just got that bit of darkness, but it's just a little bit different. Oop. There we go. So let's just darken those edges slightly for me, so that we've got that going on there. Let's pop that away, put that in there. This is why I always then need to clean my brush the next time, because I just put it straight away. I don't worry about cleaning it before I put it away. I'll clean it before I use it, if I remember. Right, so give that a wipe. I tend to, my cleaning strategy is usually, if it's going to get on something, I'll clean it. If it's not going to worry me, then I don't worry too much. Okay, so that's the background of the Memory Dex complete. But now I want to put something over it, but I want to, because I've now got the texture, I'm going to struggle to actually stamp directly onto that, and that is where things like the collage paper really do come in useful. So I'm going to do some stamping onto the collage. Just realised I haven't got my collage distress medium out. I might have to go and grab it in a second. So let's, oops, I've got two pieces out there, so I only want the one piece. And recently I ordered this lovely set from All and Create. It's by Tracy Evans, and it was on special offer, so I had to grab it. It was already on my wish list, and then when I saw it was on special offer, I think it was at That's Crafty, I had to grab it because it was one I wanted anyway. But the stamps are actually always a lot bigger than the packaging shows, so we're going to use this big stamp at the top, which is like a collage stamp. I think it's a stag beetle. And I'm going to put that onto my collage paper. Now the collage paper has a shiny side and a more matte side, and I always stamp onto the shiny side, because when I've looked at the collage papers that are printed, the printing is always on the shiny side, so I sort of made an assumption, it could be a wrong assumption, that that was the correct side to use. Now this is the first time I've used this stamp, so if it doesn't print brilliantly the first time, that will be the reason, so I will just do it again. So I'm sorry if the tapping onto this is causing any problems with the sound. I've put a bit of foam under my my stand to try and dampen down sound going up into the microphone, but we will find out today if that has actually made any difference whatsoever. I am using an archival ink because it is permanent and waterproof, so when I stick it onto my project with my distress medium, then it won't let the ink move. So let's have a look which way. I'm just trying to think of just use the least amount of my collage paper. Not the least amount, but the most economic way of using my collage paper. Let's give this a good press. I'm using the Be Crafty Super Skinny Slims, which do give you the ability to just have a little flex in the corners. And it is a flex, it's not a bend. You do not want to be bending them. They are acrylic, they will snap if you treat them like if you bend them too much. So it's just keeping your hand in the middle. That's the area that I'm concentrating on. That's the area that I know will be the most tricky to get a good print from. But that's why when you do that, you hold your hand down, give it a little flex, and then that helps it give that extra bit of pressure into the middle. Now I'm totally happy with that, considering that is the first time that stamp has been inked, and that size of that stamp, that I'm really impressed with. That's amazing. So what I'm going to do is, normally I would get some water and tear around areas to get my edges nice and fluffy, but because this is going sort of onto the edges, I'm not too worried. I think I'm just going to rip. Now I always find with these collage papers, they will rip better one way than another, and I think that's to do with how paper is made. So for example there, when I tore it across, it was fine, it was not a problem. When I'm trying to tear it down, it's giving me more resistance because I'm guessing that the fibres are going that way, so it's not liking me going through them. So you do have to then take a bit more care if you want an actual piece to be torn, because it will naturally, if I do this again, look, it naturally wants to tear that way. So I'm going to pop it. I don't want the whole thing covered. I just see, this is what I just went against what I said tonight, and I didn't concentrate on that it was going to want to tear that way again. I want that bit there with those letters. So I'm just going to have a little piece here, and then I can always add some other bits, more so the numbers or something like that. I quite like them numbers. I'm going to actually get those, and I can add those on in another area. I'm going to just very quickly grab my distress collage medium. I know exactly where it is, so it doesn't take me 2 seconds, and this is the one I like to use. You can use other matte mediums. I do have other matte mediums, and sometimes I do use them, particularly in my videos, but this is the one I really like. I like the fact it's in a pot as well, because I do like to be able to get my brush in and out of it quite easily. So let's get some matte medium, and I do tend to go on the back of my collage paper, and I do try to get right to the edges, because what I have found is that when you get it all covered, you get a better see-throughness. Now you do have to be a little bit careful when you're going over your distress oxide, because it is water reactive and it will start to come back up if you're not careful. Now which way up do I want this? That way, because the writing's that way. And I do have a thing that I know sometimes it doesn't matter, but I do like to try and have my writing the right way up. And then as you go over the top again, you'll see that where the white was of the collage paper, I hope that's not going fuzzy, it goes transparent. It's melded it in. And now because this is a Memory Dex card, it's going on my Memory Dex spinner, or if it was going in my journal, I'm not too worried about the back. So I will just fold, just put a little bit of collage medium at the back and just fold those bits over If you didn't really didn't want them, you could leave them, wait till it's dry, and then cut them off with a pair of scissors. I have done that sometimes as well, but because it's the Memory Dex card, I'm not too worried. I'm going to just pop that in, and then because it's on the collage paper where all that texture is, I've been able to get the impression. Now at the moment that's still quite wet, so you won't overly see it, and don't want to dry it with a heat tool because obviously it will remelt, that's the word, remelt the embossing powder underneath. So I am also going to just add this little bit here into this corner because I just love them numbers. I've got a thing about numbers. Don't know why really, just like them. So I'm going to, even though that oxide does move a little bit, it doesn't actually move that much. It really does keep it's staying there quite well actually. I'm quite impressed. Right, then go over that. So I've just added that little bit of numbers into the corner there as well. So that will now need to dry. So what I will do is I will put that to the side. I might stop the video here for a second just so I can clean up and get ready to do the acetate. Hello again, I am back. I've done a bit of cleaning. That's had a little bit of time. It's not that dry because I was obviously very quick with my my cleaning up, but I'll just try and show you that a little bit. I'm hoping that it will be dry enough to stick my main focal point on. Now I have got here some heat resistant acetate. Years ago I used to buy normal acetate and I used to buy heat resistant acetate, and then after a while, I think I may have heard somebody say it on something as well, but I thought to myself, why am I buying two sorts? Because I get confused and I'm never sure which one I've got open in the drawer, especially if I've used a part and then thrown the rest back in. I couldn't remember whether it was heat resistant or not, so I decided that it was actually easier just to buy heat resistant acetate altogether, because then it didn't matter if it was or it wasn't for what I was using it for. So that is what I now do. The brand I do use is Crafter's Companion. It's just because that's the brand I've always bought, so I have no comparison to any other brand at all. And I do like, in particular, doing butterfly wings onto acetate because I just think it looks really nice. And I know you can buy pre-made transparent wings. I have pre-made transparent wings that I have bought, but I do like to have an option of what I use, and sometimes it's nice to just go through your stash and think, oh, I can use that to create the same sort of look, which is what I like to do. So I am going to go with, I'm thinking a butterfly, because I do like a butterfly, but there are on this set, this is the wing, I don't know if I said it at the beginning, it's Winged Bugs, it's by Tracy Evans, and there are 3 sets of butterfly wings. There's what looks like a big dragonfly, this is probably a mayfly or another sort of fly, and then this looks like this is potentially the wasp's wings. So you've got the wings and you've got the bodies to go with them as well. So I am going to go for a butterfly. So I've got a butterfly body and I'm going to go for these ones. These are obviously much more open space, so I would see a lot more, but I did want a little bit of detail, but not too much. That's why I've decided to go for the middle one there. I'm still trying to decide whether I want the body to be opaque, as in on a proper piece of card, or whether I also want that to be a transparent with the acetate. So you probably are not going to be able to see, oh, there it is, you can see I have got some, and I am going to use my anti-static bag just because it's acetate, so it will pick up a lot of oils, a lot of fingerprints, so I'll try to get rid of those if I can. My cat has just decided he wants to go out, so I'm just going to have to pause you a second just to go and let him out. Tell him that he wasn't allowed to do that, but he's a cat, so he does what he likes. Now, normally you wouldn't use something like VersaFine or VersaFine Clair onto acetate because it is a pigment ink and it stays wet for a really long time, so it's not going to dry on acetate. But I'm actually using it because I want to also heat emboss, and it stays open quite a while, so you can get embossing powder which will then seal the ink in, so it's not going to stay wet. So I wouldn't normally use VersaFine onto acetate. I would use either an archival, or if you choose to use a StazOn, that's another good one. But because I'm going to emboss, because I want it to be really, really black, and what I found is if you stamp with a black pigment ink and then you emboss over it with black powder, you get a much more black look on acetate. Sometimes if you use a clear embossing with a black embossing ink with a white clear embossing powder, it sort of has like a grey look to it, rather than a black. So that is why I've started doing it so that I use both, so that I really get that blackness to it, which is what I want when I'm stamping onto acetate. I was thinking this morning that actually, I mean, you can do it in other colours. I never do, and it's just one of those, I don't know, I've never thought about doing other colours on my acetate, but I'm pretty sure that's obviously a thing you could do. So right now I go straight down and hold, because you've got slippery ink on a slippery surface, and you just need to make sure that you're just holding it nice and still. I just realised I'm right at the bottom of the camera there, sorry about that, but I will, there we go, I'll move it up. So I'm just holding it and then lifting, and I've got my acetate wings. And then I'm going to get my black powder. This one happens to be Sentimentally Yours. I go for a super fine because I do tend to do a lot of embossing of sentiments, so I automatically, again, I find that if I have this super fine, then it, you know, it doesn't matter what I'm using it for, it's always going to give me that really detailed impression. Get that in there, move that out of the way, and now I'm going to heat emboss it. Now, although it is heat resistant acetate, it is still acetate, so you do not want to be leaving your heat tool hovering in one area for a long time, because it will start to warp it even though it's heat resistant. So I make sure that I turn my heat tool on first and I get it hot, and then as soon as I see a part is melting, I move on so that I don't stay in one place for too long. Let's just give that a little moment to get really, really hot. I'm also going to lift it away from the mat so that it gets a chance to go right through. I'm going to try and tip it so I can see as it turns. It goes quite quickly, I find, on acetate anyway. There we go, done. It's as quick as it is. So there you go, there's your, remember not to put your fingers in it straight away. I've done that many a time. And you've got your lovely glossy acetate wings. So I'm going to cut those out. Should have had my scissors ready, shouldn't I? That was a mistake. I've got my medium sized one. They're my little ones. I like my little ones. I do have to say, I do tend to use these little ones more, but I know some people like to cut with big scissors. I am a little scissors kind of person. The other reason I do like to stamp onto acetate is because obviously it's clear, you can get away with leaving a bit of a border. So if you are doing something that's a little bit more tricky, sometimes I do it with seahorses because they often have lots of like little frondy bits, and when I cut things out I do like to usually cut right to the edge, and if I really can't, I find that sometimes just having it on the acetate means I can cut a bit further out but it doesn't look like I have. I'll try and find my acetate then, but I'll move that out of the way, put that down there. And now I've got to decide how I'm going to do this body. I'm thinking it might look nice coloured, so I'm going to stamp it. I've got a piece of watercolour card here, so I am going to perhaps stamp it, and then would the body be on the top or the body be on the bottom with the butterfly? I don't know. But let's stamp it out first and find out. Where have I put the stamp? It's underneath the piece of paper. There we go. We'll take that one off of there. Do that all the time. So lose things that are right in front of my eyes. Right, now because I've done the wings in black, I am going to do the body in black. I'm going to go back to my archival just because it's a quicker drying ink. I have got much more into using my VersaFine Clair for my normal black stamping, but it does require heat setting, so because I am just very impatient, I go for my archival because I know that it dries so quickly. Now I've done that on there, and I've just realised that maybe I should have done it on the acetate, because then I could not have to worry about the antenna. But I like it, I think, in the being more opaque than the wings. So you can give archival a little bit of a heat set as well. I have to admit I tend not to. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not moving my cutting away from you too much. It's quite alien to be holding it so far away from yourself. Although, having said that, with my eyesight, it's probably better for me. So here we go. It's a nice simple design. Like I say, I have a tendency to cut right to my lines. It's just the look that I prefer. But if, you know, lots of people like to leave a border. I have to say, if I'm doing more quirky characters, I find that the border is fine. But when I'm doing more realistic images like butterflies and things, I do like to cut them right up to the edge. Now I don't know, I still haven't decided whether you have your wings underneath or your wings on the top. Just trying to think when I look at the butterfly. I suppose if it's going like that, it would be like that, wouldn't it? Just trying to remember. I love butterflies. They are one of my favourites. So I have to keep moving that mat. It moves when I lean on it. So I am going to go around the edges of my body with a black permanent marker, just to colour in that raw edge. And I have said this probably on these videos before, and I do say it a lot when I'm doing Facebook Lives and things. This is something I personally like to do. It's just I personally feel it finishes them off, especially if you're cutting right to the edge. Obviously, if you're doing a border around your stamped images, then you don't need to do it, but if you're cutting right to the edge, I think it just finishes it off nicely. There, so that can go on there. Now I am going to give it a little bit of colour, because I have no, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to go for something that is sitting nearish to me, which is my scribble sticks, and I'm going to go with a brown. I do like the scribble sticks for a quick bit of colouring. They're handy because they're in this stick form. You just have to have a water brush. Take that off there. You know, they are really quick and simple to use, and a good thing for if you're out on the, you know, out and about and you don't want to take a watercolour palette with you. They're like, it's colour in a stick, so it's really handy. Let's get that. I notice they are getting a bit dented at the bottom of some of my scribble sticks now. I do tend to keep using the same colours. Let's move that out of the way, and then let's bring this back in now that it's not totally dry. I probably should wait, shouldn't I? But you know, I won't, because I'm very impatient. So I'm going to use a little bit, I think, of red liner tape. Now this is not something I use. I've got quite a few different sizes, but it's not something I use tons. I do tend to use it more if I'm doing something construction, if I'm making notebooks and I want to stick the spine onto the covers, or if I'm doing boxes, which doesn't happen very often, but I will tend to use this tape because it's sorry, just trying to work that out. It's a really strong tacky tape, but I don't tend to use it a lot in general crafting, mainly because this red bit just gets stuck everywhere. It's so static. But if you're doing something like this, it's quite handy because it does sort of blend in. Now I was thinking about how you could sometimes, like if you really didn't want to see what you were using to stick down some of these acetate pieces, and I did have a thought the other day that you could do it onto a double-sided adhesive and actually make like clear stickers, so that would work as a way of not seeing the glue, because even with the the red liner, it does sort of show up a little bit. And I'm thinking I want it here, and I want to have a what's the word, a sentiment on here as well. So I am going to use some pin flare glue to stick this down to give it a little bit of, I should pick the one that's like nearly running out, but that's okay. So give it a little bit of dimension, so it's raised above, and it's got more of a moth sort of look actually, the body, hasn't it, than a butterfly. I would have said a butterfly might be, imagine, no, butterflies are quite chunky actually, I think. But there we go. So if you wanted to add a little bit of colour to your acetate, you could use your alcohol markers as well, that would work. And I'm going to find some words for this. I am thinking that probably I would have maybe put a strip of something behind the butterfly there, just to lift that off a bit. Actually, I'm just wondering if I've got anything. I've got a whole bag of bits and bobs here that might work. Like a bit of, maybe a bit of this or something. Let's have a look. And this is why using something like a glue gel is quite a good one, because you can then move it back off. Let's get my black ink just to edge it, so that it doesn't look like it's coming out of nowhere. It probably will still look like it's coming out of nowhere, but I might now do this and decide that actually that doesn't work for me either. But so just thinking, quite like the idea of something being under there. So let's just, I'm going to just smear that across with my finger, pop that down onto there, and pop that back on the top there, just to add. Sometimes when you've got your focal image, if you just need something to lift it off of the background, especially like that, that's quite a busy background, so it sort of just, to my eyes, was just blending in too much. Now I'm thinking that my sentiment, I'm going to go with some Big Chats. This is Tim Holt's Big Chats. These are some of my favourites. Now it's a butterfly, so we could have something to do with sky, something to do with flying. That's always a good one. I'd probably find I've got no flying because I'll probably use those ones over and over again. Free as, no, because I haven't got a bird. Free as a butterfly. This is why it's going to take me forever, isn't it? Journey, travel, sunshine, sea. Oh goodness me. See, this is now going to take another 10 minutes on this video, isn't it? Stay strong, stay thankful. I'll just make a decision. Actually, I don't think I need it to be, because I could just have that and that. Have that like that. Have that going under there like that. Then that covers those edges. I do have a thing about my edges being covered, and so I always like to try, and if I've got like the edge of that paper there, I will want that to be covered up. and I think it's to do with the flow. I like it to flow right through. So stay thankful. And what I will do is, as soon as it's dried, I will take pictures to add onto the end of the video so you can see it properly, and some closer up ones as well so you can see it properly close up. And there we go. A vintage, I think I would say more vintage than steampunk, vintage Memory Dex card with some collage paper and some acetate stamping as well, and then the stenciling with the ultra thick gel with embossing powder. So I hope you like that. If you do enjoy, do please like and subscribe. It's really appreciated. I really love to see your comments as well. So thank you very much, and until next time, have a lovely week. Bye.